Welcome to another episode of Raven Conversations. I'm Joe Seamandel, the State Public Affairs Officer for the Washington National Guard. And today we have a pretty big setup here. Right beside me, I've got First Sergeant Nick Vankirk with the 10th CST, your second time on the show.
Yep.
And across from us on the other table, we got Chief Jack Androski. Jack is with the Homeland Response Force. And then Major Josh Jorgensen, who M-Day officer, you're a school teacher up in Linden, Washington, and then you're in the IO. You guys are obviously not dressed in your uniform. You're dressed in your, I'd say, second uniform as part of the Washington National Guard Biathlon team. So you're here to talk biathlon with us and really kind of spread the good word of what you guys are doing. So I appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, so we'll quick go around the horn. Nick, I know you've introduced yourself before, but for the folks watching, kind of quick background on yourself.
So First Sergeant Nick Vankirk with the 10th CST. I came into the Guard in around 2005, 3 years on active duty, and I've been in ever since. Had a lot of good opportunities to include this one, and I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, and Jack?
I joined the Guard in 2008, was in 3 different Guard units in 3 different states, and now I'm in the Great Washington National Guard. Love it, and doing great things for the 10th HERF.
Josh?
So I've been in the Guard since 2009. Started off with 341st, and then spent my first 6-8 years with 81st Brigade, then went over to aviation. Now I'm in 56 TOG, so hit all the MSCs in the state.
Yeah, so for the folks at home, I always ask the same question when I kind of kick these things off, is how'd you learn about the Guard?
So I got very fortunate when I came off the 82nd. My battalion commander said I couldn't get out unless I considered the Guard of the Reserves. So I went home, did my research. I found 19th Group Special Forces. I said I wanted to be a support guy for them, went there, and kind of the rest is history. So I'm very thankful to be in the Guard. I mean, it set the trajectory for the rest of my career. I'll retire out next year, and I've had a lot of opportunities, so I'm very thankful to the Guard.
Yeah. Jack?
I had some graduate loans, and the Guard provided the tuition reimbursement, and the Reserves didn't. So that's how I found the Guard.
It's all about the education benefits, right, Josh?
So when I was doing ROTC, Captain Brett Rubio with 341st, he was the Guard liaison at UW, and he was like, "Hey, did you know that you can have a civilian job? Because I do music as a profession." So he was like, "Yeah, you can have a civilian career and still do the military." I was like, "Oh, okay, sign me up." Yeah.
Those education benefits. That's what got me to join the Guard too. So why we're here, right? And you guys are wearing your biathlon jackets, which I feel kind of left out, but I like we all got the collars going on today. So we're going to talk biathlon team. And Jack, I think you probably are the subject matter expert for most of this, so we'll start with you and the questions. What is a biathlon team, and how long have we had one in Washington?
That's a great question. So the biathlon team is about 1991 was the first biathlon team for the state. And it's gone through iterations, a joint endeavor, both Army and Air. For the large percentage of it was only Air. Since the 2000s, it's been mostly Army. There's some funding issues with that there in Army funding these events. Basically, at the basis, it's just your winter warrior, right? Shoot, move, and communicate is what we know as an Army mantra. And shoot straight, ski fast is what we do in biathlon. It's not just a winter sport anymore, it's a summer sport. And we ski up in Stevens Pass on the Methil Valley in Spokane. The team is made up of, give or take, between 7 and 15 people. And we have athletes from across the state, east and west, that represent the team.
Yeah. So you mentioned kind of the summer-winter breakdown. In the summer, obviously, you're not on winter skis. You're on roller skis, I would imagine. And then there's also a shooting event. Kind of explain what a typical event looks like, Josh.
Okay, so for the winter event, like obviously it's just like in the Olympics. You have your skiing and you ski some circles, and you stop, take 5 shots at a target, and then you get to see immediately if you hit the target, it turns white. So you're like, oh, cool. But if you miss, well, then you get to do penalty loops. So you could have been in first place, and now, well, you're in 4th or 5th. So you do that until the end of the race, and then in the end, they count up. Did you win? If you tied, how many misses did you have? And it's pretty fun because it gets harder when you're down and prone and you're shooting at a silver dollar. When you're standing and shooting offhand, it's about the size of a CD. So it's hard to stop, shoot, and do that while you're controlling your breathing. And but then as soon as you're done, you're off and skiing again. For summer series, They do it at the King County firing range up at the Cascade Firing Club, and they do either running or mountain biking for the summer. So you get to choose your race. They do both races during one day, and it's pretty fun because it's either a 5K, 6K run or a 10K mountain bike. So
let me build up that one shot. So right now, of all the Olympic sports, biathlon is the only Olympic sport that an American athlete hasn't medaled in. Our closest was Specialist now Sergeant Deirdre Irwin of the Minnesota National Guard in the Olympics last year. She missed one shot at the end of her race, and if she had made the shot, she would have been gold. She missed the shot; she was fourth place, which is the highest place ever in the Olympics. It's the only sport that we haven't medaled in. So we have hopes for Sergeant Irwin bringing home gold. But the larger context is the National Guard owns the biathlon program, owns the Olympic. All the athletes that participate in the Olympic biathlon are Guard athletes. They're not from Minnesota. They're from they could be from any of the 54 states and territories. They come from a cross-country background, and they developed them at the Vermont National Guard, who's the executive agent since 1970. Prior to that, it was an active duty sport only.
Yeah, why do you think the guardsman could be successful in a biathlon, or a service member could be successful in biathlon?
You own that one.
Yeah. So for me, a fella who had been in the skis once before, Chief Androski, had asked me to participate because he knew I was an endurance sport guy and a guy with a generally positive attitude and gregarious in nature, I suppose. So I just think, to me, the mark of a good service member is being able to be put in a situation that they may be unfamiliar with, but having a positive attitude to be able to do that. And I think that is kind of a mark of guardsmen, is to be able to do that. And I will say, I did not come out on top, certainly not. But you know what? Why I didn't? No, but I certainly wasn't last. I wasn't even in the bottom 10 last. But I mean, I had a great time. Everyone was very gracious with me. Everyone was a good teacher, and it was within the spirit of the Guard. I mean, everyone was just very, very good. And even though it was a competition, I didn't feel that it was like we were only in competition with ourselves. Yeah. And everyone was very encouraging. So.
And let's talk about that positive attitude that the first sergeant brings to us. All right, so you do 4 rotations, 2 standing, 2 offhand, or in the prone. And if you come in from a very long ski and you shoot, you miss all your targets, you're going to have a long day at the penalty line. You just have to forget about it, right? It's just like meeting the enemy, all right? The enemy has a different position on you. You aren't anticipating that, and you just got to drive on. So that's the kind of positive spirit you got to have. You come in, you shoot, you blank on all 5. Don't worry, you're going to have another shot at the enemy on the next rotation. And you just got to let it go behind you. And we have a good Guard community out there. We have the states all support each other when we have these competitions.
Yeah, so you kind of mentioned these little successes, right? And I know you guys have had a team for quite a while. What are some of those successes you guys have seen?
Well, I think you're looking at it right now. We have some new uniforms, green machine, the white colors for the Seahawks. When Major Jorgensen comes out of the white mountains of Minnesota and everyone is blanketed in by their camouflage, you can see Major Jorgensen coming onto the trail. Other than that, we've got a bigger team than we've ever had before, and we're going to have 4 females this year. So if some of the races have a format where you have to have a relay, and you have to have 4. And unfortunately, we haven't had that, so we haven't had a chance to medal in those races. And this year, we're going to have 4 females, so we're going to be able to compete with California, Utah, and Minnesota.
Yeah. And we'll get to the question of how somebody joins the team kind of closer to the end, but let's talk some of the equipment, right? And Josh, we'll start down there with the wheeled skis. For anybody who's ever a winter sports enthusiast who loves skiing, they know what those are. But kind of talk about some of the equipment. We'll start from there and we'll kind of work our way around.
Yeah, so what Jack has in his hand, it's a roller ski. What we use for summer training, obviously. There's no snow in the summer, so you have to do something to keep in tune with how to keep those muscles going. Because, coming at this from being a triathlete before, it's like, okay, I can swim, I can bike, I can run. And then transferring into cross-country skiing is like, man, my legs hurt really bad. Like, all the little muscles are way different because you're using your foot to lift up and, the front of your shin that you never use those small muscles. And these really help us to train those little muscles and getting your ankle muscles really strong for stabilization. And so it's a great training tool that we use. And you can talk to any biathlete, they're like, I hate roller skis. It's because they're a good training tool. Anything that's really good for you is like, you're just like, oh, this is awful.
Also, you can't stop with them.
Yeah. If you're not gliding and you're not kicking, you're not moving. And like, it's fun to get out there. My son goes rollerblading next to me when I go out here, and he gets his little poles on. He gets going too. But yeah, it's a great teaching tool for us. And then once you jump back on the snow, you're like, wow, this is so much easier because I spent all the spring and summer on these roller skis, and now I can go.
Yeah.
So
Isometrically, if you're running, sideways, whereas skiing, you're moving laterally. We just don't stress those muscles out in the summer, so this gives us an opportunity to stress those isometric muscles out.
yeah.
Yeah. So obviously ski poles, if you've ever spent a day on the slopes, you already have a basic standard set of poles that help you with balance. I would assume that's probably very similar for you guys. They're probably also in cross country, we would use them to kind of help push too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to mention is that this is all guard material. So the guard is paid for this. So you don't have to go out there and buy this equipment yourself. And it could get pretty expensive between boots, skis, poles. You're looking at $1,500 per soldier.
Yeah.
But the prime thing is the Biathlon rifle, which is an on-shoots rifle, 22. This is for a left hand because I'm a left-hand dominant. And the guard paid for all of these. And we're actually in the middle of a weapons rifle upgrade. So we're getting rid of our old bolt action, and we're getting the new Fortner action. It's about $5,700. And the guard provides all these rifles for us. And we're trying to do a partnership now with the Seattle and Tacoma Police Department, where we can go on their ranges, because sometimes the Army ranges doesn't afford us to go out on a drill weekend to shoot there to the regulations.
So for somebody who we all go to the range every year, right? And there's guardsmen that they just struggle at that range. For somebody who's going to struggle at the range and they know it, compare that to an M4. How would that shoot compared to an M4?
A lot easier.
Yeah.
I would say because there's a lot less recoil in it. The cheek to stock weld is consistent, and then pulling back that bolt for every shot. I mean, that's something that can be done just right here. So it doesn't take a lot of movement. Kind of as Major Jorgensen had pointed out, like probably one of the difficult pieces about it is like, you've been moving throughout this course on skis, and then you stop, it's freezing out, and then you have only so much time before that cold's going to set in and affect your shooting. But I feel it's a lot easier, and then also with great instruction and also going through the motions too, because one thing that is very important is like the motion from coming from the track and then getting down into the prone, or getting down, or getting from the standing position. Like those are all very nuanced and require some specialized movement. But I would say it's a lot easier.
Let's go on the instruction part. So when we race, we do a 4-day format. So every day we're shooting, every day we're racing. And right before we race, we have to zero. And there's a time limit for that. And so we have to get all our soldiers in on that zeroed rifle, because the rifle will change depending on the temperature, humidity, and stuff like that. So where you go to the range and you have 18 rounds to qualify, or 18 rounds to zero, and then you got to be pushed over. There's a tremendous amount of time before that to get that weapon zeroed, and then we have each other with long scopes showing that soldier, hey, you're off to the left, you're off to the right, so we can make multiple corrections in a small amount of time. Whereas if a soldier went to the range and just had 18 rounds, you want that soldier to move on as fast as you can.
And another thing to what Chief said is like we have a little bit more time. I mean, when you're on a range over on Fort Lewis or Yakima, you're beholden to a time crunch and the amount of ammo you have. But when we're out there, we have a little bit more time to spend, and so there's a little bit more one-on-one that we can have because we're such a small team too right now. So I mean that time hack and being able to sit down and get that instruction is a little bit more than we would on a regular guard range.
Yeah, and I think kind of mentioning that stuff is crucial, right? Because how many times do we see it, right, as leaders, and you're out on the range with somebody and you got that soldier that's like, I just can't hit the target, I just can't shoot, I just can't get it, and it's like, well, no, you can, let's get them focused. So I think having them understand, like, hey, it's a much less recoil, it's much easier shot, and they've got more time, more opportunities.
And
I think
having a
that's huge.
peer who's watching me shoot,
Yeah.
being like, this is what you're doing, this is what I see what you're doing, like, is definitely beneficial.
And you have the historical context about like coaching and going through like, hey, your shots are lining like this, and we just have like on the back of his board, it's, hey, you need to tighten your arm strap, you need to pull it in, let's try shooting left to right instead of right to left, and you're looking at your groupings. And the other thing is, it's not like a M4 where you're pulling it and it's like a 15-pound pull. It's like 4 pounds. So like you sneeze on that thing and it's going. So, but it's like you go through your zero cycle. You get 45 minutes for everyone on your team to go through. Most of the time you're just recalibrating, like making sure it's there. But then, like if it's your first time doing like practice rounds and they're like, okay, metal targets are open. You're like, yeah, I hit one, sweet. Yeah, and it's like, even if it was like, yeah, you were doing it on the big target, that's for standing and you were in the prone, hey, you hit a CD from 50 yards away with the 22 long. So after skiing a loop and your heart's going crazy. So
the last piece of equipment is obviously the skis behind you, Nick. Talk about that transition from being a runner. And we've talked about your physical accolades here. What's that transition like to go from running to skiing?
So for me, it was probably like day one and probably day 3 and 4 and 5. It was like a newborn baby giraffe that's trying to move forward. But I mean, part of it's about being patient and that instruction, and then also so biathlon has traditionally been done like cross country, which is different than skate skiing, right? Because skate skiing is much like what ice skating or roller skating. I did okay, but then with the traditional like cross country, like that's a lot more about like that just like explosive power. So I was able to do that as well. Of course, this year I want to come back and really get to the skate skiing, because the other thing too is like I think about being a member of a team and being a part of a team of guys who are very good is like, being there last year and being able to do okay, but like this year it's like I'm back and like now I want to be on, I will never be on the level of these guys, but like to raise the bar and raise that level of skill. But I mean, it's definitely different. I wasn't a guy who grew up roller skating or ice skating or skiing, period. Like I was a music guy. So it's a challenge. But I mean, I think like, if a 40-year-old dude can do it, like I think, anybody can do it with just like the right attitude and quite honestly, team members who believe that you can do it.
Let's be fair to First Sergeant. We did take, we go to some phenomenal places. We go to Wyoming, Utah, Alaska, Minnesota, Vermont. However, we did take him to Wyoming. So the base level was 4,700 feet. So when we got to the actual mountain, it was 5,900 feet.
Oh no, it's 9.
9. I'm sorry, I apologize.
The
9.
town is at 5. The mountain is at 9.
9. So just walking around the hotel, those guys in Wyoming are used to it. We were not used to it, and so there's an added anaerobic event that was happening with our lungs while we were going up these hills. So he did amazing. Yeah. I mean, just to go and hit those hills at 9,000, right? And because the first hill is right outside the range, so once you start, you go straight up, and all of a sudden your heart is in your lower extremities. So you did a really great job. Utah will be similar to that this year.
By the time he got to Vermont, it was like,
oh yeah,
shoot his groove. Okay.
Sea level. He was like, this is great. And Vermont kind of owns it. They have a $1.9 million package right now to compete. The World Cup comes every 2 years to America or North America. And they want a bid. The National Guard would like to host a World Cup event at Ethan Allen Training Facility, which is where the winter mountaineering is.
Yeah, and you kind of already alluded to my next question, but what's upcoming for the biathlon team, especially here in Washington? And I know we were talking World Cup, so I'll kind of hand it back over to you for that.
So we this weekend is a kind of a soft opening for our team. We're going to host a U.S. Olympic officials race. The Guard has been invited to go to the World Cup this year, either in Canada or in Utah, on the 2 locations that they're going to be on the World Cup tour. And they're going to send Guard athletes. They send Guard athletes that are going to be trained, so the Olympic venue officials will be here this weekend. We also have that in participation with our civilian partners, who's the Washington Biathlon Association. And we have some people coming from Idaho and Oregon that will help with the training. Nextly, we'll have a snow camp, which is always fun. We build a new team. We got to make sure that we can race together. And then, fingers crossed, if we pass the CR, we'll be going to Alaska for regionals, Western regionals. And then March timeframe, we'll have our Chief of National Guard Borough, which will be the final capstone race. And then in between dotted, there'll be a some races in state.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
Yeah.
And maybe some clinics.
Yeah, WBA and Methow Valley Biathlon, they do a pretty good job doing, like, I want to say it's like every other week or every third week they do races within the state. So you can always, if you're like, well, I really like this, I want to get more experience, you can always jump over to the civilian races, which are all ex-guard guys that run the racing.
One thing for retention recruiting I should mention, they have a Project X. So if you are if you're a high school athlete or a college athlete, you're thinking about joining the Guard, but you would like to be in the biathlon program full time, where you ski and shoot on the A or B, C team for the World Cup, you can actually try out. They'll fly you to Lake Placid for a 3-day course, and the end result is you would join the Guard, but they would put you on the World Cup development team. So that's Project X. That's been going around now for the last year.
Yeah. So for somebody watching this that's in the Guard who's like, hey, that sounds like a lot of fun, but I don't have any time. Where do you guys find the time? I mean, you're the senior enlisted for the CST. You're in the Homeland Response Force. You're a school teacher full time and in the Guard. Where do you find the time to do this stuff?
First sergeant actually went from not skiing at all to not only did you cross country ski, you downhilled last year, which is
that's right.
first time.
So yeah.
Right? So there's a transition, and you got to do it with your family.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is that we want to take our families with us. So we have our snow cap weekend in December. We're going to take our families with us because a Guard weekend away is bad, but a Guard weekend doing biathlon away from your family is even worse. So.
Well, and another thing too, I think when you find something that you care or love, like, you'll find the time. I mean, Chief Androski loaned me some downhill skis that I could go ski with my 15-year-old niece, and I mean, to have that with family members, like, to be able to have that skill that was kind of given to me, and to be able to share that with family, like, I think. I've always said, like, I'll find the time when it's something I care about and something that's worth my time. And being able to bridge that with good people and members of the Guard, and then also my family has definitely been a blessing. So thankful for that.
Yeah, and with having a civilian job, I know that they're both AGRs. It's a little easier to balance that out. Like, for me, it's like trying to tell my civilian boss, hey, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go skiing this week. C of I, and they're like, oh yeah, real hardship for you. You're like, yeah, but look at the overall mission of why we're doing it, and they're like, yeah, I guess we got to keep that in mind, that you go on other missions that aren't biathlon, and this is something that has more of a strategic implication to it. But like Nick said, pulling my family into it, like I brought my son's finally old enough to do it, and he had a blast doing it. My wife's still not sold on it because she doesn't like winter, but I'm sure if I said, hey, let's do this for running or biking, she'd be all about it. But
you'd be like, we're gonna go skiing. You can go hang out in the lodge, honey, and drink and
chill out in the hot tub.
She delightfully entertains the fact that I like winter, and she's just like, I'll go along with it, and we'll go skiing together as long as we're together.
I do want to bring up the readiness aspect, and I did this metric for Washington 2 years ago, and previously when I was in Alaska. If you are on the Guard team, you have a higher weapons qual, and you have a higher ACFT score. So I'm not saying there's a correlate, but there's some benefits. Secondly, readiness is that we don't have this because our SPP members, Thailand and Malaysia, and they don't have a lot of biathlon. But the other Guard states do bring their SPP partners, Lithuania, Croatia, Poland, Mongolia, to the Chief of National Guard Bureau races. And so we race with our international partners, something the active duty would never do.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty fascinating. You could, yeah, if you did, the summer biathlon. So for that Guardsman that's sitting there saying, hey, I'm interested, what do they got to do? How do they join? How do they get involved with you guys?
So, go ahead.
Just show up.
Yeah, like Woody Allen said, 90% of life's just showing up. But we will have a flyer that's going off. Like I said, we have a soft opening, and we're going to have a series of 3 events, 2 in November, 1 in December, to invite you to our snow camp. And then see if you want to, basically it's a kind of a tryout. Hey, do you like this? There's a learning curve. You're going to fall down a couple times, but we're going to be there to pick you up and give you some free gear. And so you'll see on Distro A, and you'll see a pamphlet, and hopefully you'll see some posters of our team. And if you cannot ski, if you cannot shoot, don't worry. That is not a requirement. Okay, the requirement is that if you just want to ski fast and shoot straight, we'll make that happen. So we have athletes coming out this year who have never been on cross-country skis, and that's not a problem.
Yeah. And anything else you want to add?
Just like overall, biathlon's part of the greater National Guard sports program, or the DoD sports program. Biathlon is just one aspect. In addition to that, we have marksmanship program, which it's all the same pot of money that we share. So you have that within the state also. You have marksmanship, but then you also have the marathon program too. And then the newest addition to the family is the DecaFit. So if you really like doing CrossFit, well, we have a team for you also, and you get to where's that tryout? I can't remember what program.
Nebraska, I think it is.
That's marathon.
Arizona. Well, we'll have to get that in. Well, we'll have a trifold.
Yeah.
And then, the NGB sports program is part of the World Cup program. Then, Rhode Island has got Leap Fest. They have a couple other programs. First Sergeant's done Leap Fest. I mean, the Guard provides other opportunities outside of your tactical stuff to build that team. And so, we are part of the endurance sports team. We'll be branding those efforts too.
Well, and we have, even if it's like not endurance sports, there's a guy on my unit. He's on the All Army soccer team.
Yep.
And it's like, well, there's more stuff out there than what you think. If you're really interested in your sport and you're really good at your sport, or even if you're not, you can get better at it. And if you get good enough, the Army will fund it because we have our DoD sports program, our WCAP program. So if you're interested in it, this could just be the gateway. Hey, okay, you're the person. Now who do I need to talk to for this or this or this? Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so many of these programs exist, but they're just not well known. I mean, Leap Fest is a parachuting competition that's held by the Rhode Island National Guard, and such a cool opportunity. And I think the mark of guardsmen and citizen soldiers is taking a citizen and putting them in this military. I mean, that's indicative of someone who's willing to learn and develop. And I mean, these programs are no different. And being able to provide programs that are kind of what we see on the posters when we joined, and being able to ski and shoot and jump out of planes, like that's at the heart of why a lot of this came in too. So I'm happy that we're here to be able to talk about these programs and just let service members know that they're available to them.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys coming on and talking about it. We've been covering the biathlon for years. So.
I have one more thing to add, that the Guard program. So if you finish in the top 15, it's like you're the top Guard athletes. They'll actually if you progress that much, they send you to the international military competitions over in Europe for it's 45 or 90 days, something like that. So you get that opportunity to then train internationally with other militaries that do biathlon, because it has its roots within the military. The reason for biathlon, the reason to shoot rifles and ski is because it's all predicated on winter warfare.
Yeah.
And we've had several Guard athletes make the all-Guard team.
It sounds like the first step is always just showing up, like you said, Jack. Yep. Always just showing up. So, no, I appreciate you guys coming on. Truly, like I said, we've covered the biathlon team for years. It's always good to spread the good word of what you guys are doing, and I'm glad we can kind of help. If you're interested in learning more about the biathlon team, we can definitely put the information in the notes. We'll make sure your contact information is in there as well, Jack. If you like the video, give it a like. If you have any questions or want to learn more, comment for us. And make sure to hit the bell notification to keep getting these videos. I appreciate you guys coming out.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Great to see you again.
Yeah.
Jack.
Thank you.
Jack, appreciate it, man.